Welcome one and all to the Hammer Territory Podcast. My name is Shawn Coleman. Hope wherever you are and wherever you are listening, you're having a great start to your week. Braves back in action tonight after probably the most fun off day they've had in a while. Had a great weekend against the Marlins. The offense came alive, and we get to Tuesday against the struggling Mets team in New York, and large letdown. But hey, we've seen it enough this year, so we're used to it now. But as always, my podcast partner is with me, Stephen Tolbert. Stephen, again, some really awesome play over the weekend. The offense was still there tonight, 5 runs scored, but the pitching, as we're going to talk about, the pitching just unfortunately was not.
Yeah, what's up, buddy? Yeah, I mean, it was a big letdown game, obviously a big weekend series. There is a weird dynamic going on right now with Braves fans about, like, do you want the team to win? There's a lot of Braves fans right now that don't really want to win these games. They want to lose these games. They want better draft position. The whole idea is if you're going to have a miserable season, at least make it miserable enough where you get some high quality draft capital out of it. And I understand that. I am not there. I still want to win games. The MLB draft just doesn't work like other drafts. There's a lottery system in place anyway. So even if you have the first or second best odds, it doesn't mean that's where you're going to pick. So I still want to win games, quite honestly. And so tonight was a letdown. And Spencer Strider is obviously the big story. He's going to be the main topic tonight because, that doesn't just matter for 2025. That matters very much for 2026 and beyond, especially considering, the big raise that he gets starting next year.
Absolutely. And that's the whole, point where we're at in the season is that the results, and I'm right there with you. We'll talk about it, at some point, later down the line about, the whole idea of tanking in baseball and do you really want to lose at all costs and all that different stuff. That's a subject for another time. But, in these games, yes, the results matter, especially if the offense is playing well. They're playing well enough to win. Let's win. But tonight, the offense scored 5 runs. We've talked before about how often the Braves win when they score 5 runs. But you don't usually see Spencer Strider give up 8 runs. And that's where the concern starts. Spencer Strider this year has been a bit of it's been a bit more confusing, I think, than a concern. Because we've always got the caveat of, okay, he's coming back from injury. So just, we preached on this podcast, talking about the fact that it was more likely than not, he wouldn't be his normal self this year, coming off the significant injury that he had in 2024. A few starts after he came back, there was the concern about the velocity. Then that ticked up close to what it had formerly been. But as time has gone on, that was about 2.5 months ago. As time has gone on, Stephen, the issues that I think are there with Strider are kind of 3 things. Number 1, yes, the velocity has increased, but it also is a few miles per hour lower, especially on the fastball, than where it used to be. The second thing is that Spencer Strider is running into trouble more often than not. In the past, he would give up some homers, but they wouldn't really hurt him because he was already had a big enough lead to work with. Now it's almost as if 40 to 50% of the runs that he gives up is off the homer. And the third reason that's most concerning, his fastball is getting absolutely hammered. The fastball, it's one of the worst fastballs out there in terms of exit velocity. It's gone from having a positive run value in the double digits to having a negative run value. It's not just about the velocity. It's about the fact that it's not being effectively placed as well. So there are layers to this. And when you get into layers of a concern, that's when the concern gets a bit more significant, in my opinion.
Yes. And I want to say this. I'm going to use a Brad Rowland word. It is a nuanced conversation because he is coming back from major elbow surgery, and it is very clearly unfair to judge him until we get a full offseason of him being able to train, to lift weights, to get his strength, and then see what he looks like next year. Because there's a very good chance next year, the next 2026 version of Strider, after a completely healthy offseason, looks very different. So that matters. It is unfair to start making conclusions right now because he just hasn't had that time to build back up like he will once the winter gets here. With that being said, so we're going to put that over here. With that being said, there are some concerning signs. Like there just are. And It would be disingenuous not to mention those. In 2022, when he was basically the best pitcher on the planet, his fastball averaged 98.1 miles per hour. This year it's at 95.5. He's lost almost 3 miles per hour on his fastball. That is a massive drop. That's massive. I mean, that's 3 miles per hour on your fastball is a huge deal. And anybody in baseball or anybody who covers baseball who tells you it's not is lying to you. That's a massive drop. I mean, I remember watching Mike Fultonevich, not to bring back, horrible memories, but like one season, Fulte came in throwing like 95, 96 instead of his normal like 98, 99. And that guy was out of baseball shortly after. Now, Fulte was a head case, so this is not quite that, but it is to illustrate that fastball velocity, there's a reason why every team in baseball chases it, because it's a huge deal. And Spencer has lost a significant amount of fastball velocity. But I don't think that's where the problem begins and ends. I think the main problem for Spencer is that when you've spent your whole life throwing that hard, 98, 99, 100, you've been told your whole life, just throw it over the plate. It doesn't matter where, just throw it over the plate because they can't hit it. Just don't walk people. And that's what Spencer did for most of his career. I mean, it didn't matter where he put it over the plate. He was going to get a whiff because it was coming at 100 miles an hour. Well, you can't approach your fastball the same way when you throw 95, 96. You can't throw it down the middle. And he's never had to have like the pinpoint fastball command that you kind of have to have when you're throwing 94, 95, 96. And so going into next year, I'm going to be watching for two things. Does any more velocity come back after a completely healthy offseason? That's a massive question. It is. Like him throwing 97, 98, 99 even is a big deal versus 94, 95, 96. Like every mile per hour matters here. So that's the first thing I'm going to be looking for. The second thing I'm going to be looking for is Spencer's a very competitive, very smart guy. He's going to make adjustments to whatever he's got, whatever he's got in his arsenal. He's going to make an adjustment to that. What are those adjustments? Does he have better fastball command? Is he more, conscientious of where he throws his fastball? Spencer has always been like a high fastball usage guy, like in the 60%. Like, does that go down? Does he reinvent himself as a different type of pitcher if the fastball velocity doesn't come back? There's a lot of questions, but it's only fair to give him a full offseason, a full winter to train and see what he looks like next year before we make any, radical conclusions. But it is concerning. I think that's fair. If you're a fan out there and you're concerned, especially now that his, we talked about his salary jumps up to $20 million a year next year. And for the next 3 years, that's what the Braves owe him. And right now, of course, he doesn't look like a $20 million pitcher. But what does he look like next spring? That's going to be a big question.
And I think the other thing that stands out about it is, it certainly matters if he can get back to what he was. Because, 15 months ago, I've said it multiple times, and I believe that this was the case. 15 months ago, before his injury, before we ran into the offense struggling and all this different stuff, you go back to the 2023 season. I know people don't want to hear that, but you go back to the 2023 season when Ronald Acuna Jr. was winning MVP and Spencer Strider was pre-injury. I always felt this way. The Braves clearly were a contender just like anybody else. But Spencer Strider and Ronald Acuna Jr. are what set them apart. Those are the two biggest reasons, in my opinion, why the Braves were probably considered the overall favorite as a contender in 22 and 23, though nothing came to fruition in the playoffs. We know that Ronald Acuna Jr. likely will be back to his overall superstar self. If Spencer Strider is not back to that level, I do have confidence that if he cannot regain all of his velocity, I feel that he will retool himself to be an effective pitcher. But what does effective look like to the point that he clearly is what we need to be the full contender that we want to be again? That, to me, is also a question. Can Spencer Strider get back to being a superstar? I feel like there definitely is an outcome where he can. But the confidence level in that being the outcome, I don't blame anybody if it's dwindled a little bit. We've got questions that need to be answered. I don't feel as if that's unfair as a response to what we've seen for Spencer Strider. And to your point, Stephen, we need to give him the full grace of the offseason to come back as he needs to be. I think it's going to put everything into being the pitcher that he once was. But if he naturally cannot be that, we don't know what that outcome looks like. If he can't be the Spencer Strider of old, what does the new Spencer Strider look like? We certainly hope that it's not what we're seeing right now. We think it will be better than that, but we don't know. And I think that's the main source of concern.
Yeah, and listen, I mean, we've said it, like with Spencer, there's always this main concern of like, is he healthy? And that's just always going to be there. But now on top of it, there's this concern that even if he is healthy, if he doesn't have his velocity back, what kind of pitcher is he going to be? So it's just kind of a second concern on top of already the main concern, which is, dear God, I hope he doesn't get hurt again. So yeah, it's fair. And listen, this is why it's dangerous to hand out $20 million plus extensions to pitchers. I mean, it just is. It's a very risky proposition, especially guys who live off fastball velocity. Because if these guys get hurt and the fastball velocity doesn't come back or isn't quite the same, what do you have left? And, with Spencer, he might have to get to a point where he has to reinvent himself. But again, he's a hyper competitive dude. He's not just going to, I brought up Fulte before just because of the fastball drop, but Fulte was such a mental case. Strider is so much more of a sound, steady dude. Like, I have much more confidence that Strider can figure something else out than I would other guys. So yes, he may have to reinvent himself, but again, it's only fair that we give him the full offseason before we even get to that point. I think he's earned that.
Yeah, to sum it all up, again, there's the words concern and confidence. I feel very confident that Spencer Strider, with a fully healthy offseason, is going to return to being an effective top of the rotation type pitcher for the Braves. But is that also in line with being the pitcher that he was, potentially the best overall pitching commodity in baseball 2 years ago? I don't know if that's going to be the outcome. We have to wait and see. If the velocity comes back, I'm very confident that he could be that again. But if he doesn't, I feel confident that he'll find a way to be effective. But what that looks like, I'm not sure. And that's where I feel that it's more than fair to be a bit concerned. But one thing that we are getting some answers on to one of the biggest concerns in the first half of the season is the fact that Michael Harris II is absolutely going off right now. A bit on exactly why that is, and also why it should not come as that much of a surprise. More on that right after a word from our partners.
We have a little breaking news on HelloFresh. We've talked about them for a long time, but this summer they have their biggest menu upgrade yet. Ready for this, Todd Father?
Talk to me.
They have doubled their menu. Doubled. Now you can choose from 100 options each week, including new seasonal dishes and recipes from around the world. 100 options per week.
That's incredible. But to start out, what they had before was absolutely perfect. Now to add even more for your go guys like me. I got baseball in the morning. I got baseball afternoon, all day, every day. I need something to get going. I need something to eat, and it's absolutely delicious, Scott.
That's right, Todd Father. The best way to cook just got better. Go to HelloFresh.com/FT10FM right now to get 10 free meals plus a free item for life. 1 per box with active subscription. Free meals applied as discount on a first box. New subscribers only. Varies by plan. That is HelloFresh.com/FT10FM to get 10 free meals plus a free item for life.
All right, Stephen. So when we talk about the second half of the season so far, listen, not much has changed in terms of wins and losses. The Braves offense overall has incrementally gotten better. But the thing that I'll say is this, is that 2 storylines stand out above all. Drake Baldwin's pursuit of Rookie of the Year, we've talked about as one of the bigger storylines. But to me, the biggest storyline in terms of overall disappointment in the first half of the season to outstanding development in the second half has been the immense improvement of Michael Harris II. We've seen a resurgence in his overall approach and in the production. What do you take away from it?
So here's my thing with Michael Harris. I feel like I'm getting Charlie Browned a little bit. Do you understand that reference? Do you understand what I mean by that? Yeah. So if you don't know, one of the famous bits in Charlie Brown was his friend Lucy would hold a football and she would tell him to kick it. And right as he would go to kick it, she would move it away and he'd fall on his ass. And the bit was she would always convince him that she wasn't going to move the football, that he can kick it and she wasn't going to move it, and she'd always move it. The reason I feel like I'm being Charlie Brown a little bit is because last year, Michael came back from injury. He was the best player on the team. I remember he came back in San Francisco, hit that grand slam. He was, I think he had like a 130 WRC plus in the second half last year. He was the best player in the playoffs last year by far. And I took that performance and I extrapolated it out over a full season. And I came on the show and said multiple times, you'll remember this, to you, I think Michael Harris I think he's an underrated MVP candidate for the 2025 season. I said that to you multiple times.
To make sure we're on the same page, my hot take, one of my bold predictions, was that Michael Harris will be the starting center fielder for the National League All-Star team in Atlanta. So me and you were both there.
Yeah. And I know that we said that because I've been made fun of on Twitter 1,000 times between then and now for those takes. Every week somebody tweets me out. I thought Michael Harris was going to be an MVP candidate. And so now I find myself in a very familiar place where the second half of the season has arrived and Michael Harris looks like one of the best players, not only on the team, in the league. He has got everything you look for in terms of, like, if you're trying to build a foundational, like, MVP caliber player, you're looking for power, you're looking for speed, you're looking for premium defense at a premium defensive spot. And you can't get more premium than center field. Like, these are the pillars of building like an MVP level player. And these are all the traits that Michael has. And, we said last offseason, if he could just make some incremental improvements with the plate discipline stuff, this guy could win MVP. And I firmly believe that when I said it almost a year ago now. But now here we are in 2025, we're going through the exact same thing. And so I feel like I'm being Charlie Brown a little bit. I feel like Lucy's holding the football and she's saying, I'm not going to pull it away. Go ahead and kick it as hard as you can. And I know me well enough to know I'm probably going to try to kick it. I'm probably going to fully buy into this Michael Harris thing again. And so I'm going to ask you, Shawn, is Lucy going to pull the football? Am I going to get made fun of all year next year because I'm fully bought into this Michael Harris resurgence? Or do we need to show a little more caution with these massive second halves that he has?
At this point, if you are taking this production with a grain of salt, I don't blame you a bit. I put it out on Twitter the other day. I don't know what Michael Harris does during the All-Star break, whether he takes the super soldier serum or what have you. He powers up. He levels up every All-Star break. For instance, if you look at games at the team games 90 through 120 of every season since Michael Harris has been in the league, that 30-game stretch, which basically is mid-July through mid-August, 831 OPS is his rookie year, 889 and 23, 890 and 24, over 1,000 so far this year. You look at his by-month splits throughout his career. He has a 662 first half OPS and an 888 second half OPS. And it goes 682 in April and March, 545 in May, 776 in June, 781 in July, 883 in August, and then 869 in September. And it goes along with what we're seeing with this Braves team. When we talk about, at times, it seems like that we've got the streakiest group of players you could possibly find, it's the truth. Because the same exists about Austin Riley, the same exists about Matt Olson. They struggle in April and May to start the year. Riley starts getting going in mid-June. Olsen starts getting going in early July, and then Michael Harris starts getting going in the middle of July. And that's why we won 70% of our games. But in 2022 and 2023. So my point that I'm getting at is the numbers absolutely support and back up everything that you're saying, Stephen. Now, with that being said, I'm not going to say that this is fool's gold. I'm not going to say that what we're seeing from Michael Harris is just an absolute anomaly and we're not going to see it again. I don't feel he's going to put 1,050 OPS together over a season, but I do think that he clearly has all-star level upside. He clearly can play to this level. It's just, what are we going to have to do to see it over a full season? But to be fair to Michael Harris, I want to ask the same question to Austin Riley, to Ozzie Albies, and to Matt Olson. So that's my take. It absolutely is supported by numbers. We need to see it over a full season, so take that with caution. But there also is a history here to where this is really good. And if he could ever put it together in the first half, you've got an MVP candidate.
I think the last week of April, we should give Michael Harris the week off and tell him that's the All-Star break. And this is big. This is big brain. This is now using the big part of the brain. We're going to, the last week of April, we're going to give him a week off. We're going to tell him it's the All-Star break. Whatever he normally does in the All-Star break, do it that week and then see what happens May 1. I think that's what I'm trying next year. I don't know if that's real or not, but in my head, it's real. And listen, you're right. There are plenty of other guys on the team that are streaky, but Michael Harris has taken it to a whole nother level, especially this season. Like this year is he was the worst hitter in baseball for 3.5 months. And now he's been one of the best hitters in baseball for the last basically month.
Yeah, his rookie season from the 1st of August through mid-September in 2022, he legitimately was the best outfielder in baseball F-WAR-wise besides Aaron Judge. So this level of production we've seen before. That's what makes it so exciting with the fact that we've seen it before, so we know he's capable of it. But on that same end also makes it so frustrating because it's like, why can't we see this? Not even all the time, but just not what we saw in the first half when you're capable of what you're doing right now.
Yeah, that's the part. It's not that I expect this guy to show up 6 months of the year. It's just I don't understand how you can be one of the worst players on the sport for 3.5 months and then be one of the best players in the sport for the last 2 months. And I feel like I'm getting Charlie Browned. I do. And I would love to be wrong. At some point in this offseason, I'm probably going to try to kick the football again. And I'm probably going to say something like, I think Michael Harris could be a under the radar MVP candidate, but I don't know. I have been watching lately him crush everything. And I'm thinking I'm getting Charlie Brown.
But the whole point that I'll end with when it comes to talking about Michael Harris, Stephen, is that it's the understanding that we don't necessarily need for him to be like this the whole season. It would be unrealistic for him to be that. But just think.
Like average would be great.
Yeah. Just think if we can, I'm just using OPS because it's just a simple stat that most people get. Yeah. Just if you could get a Michael Harris to a 750, 800 OPS through every month of the season.
He'd be a 5-win player.
Get Michael Harris in that range, get Ozzie Albies in the 700 to 750 range, and get a shortstop who potentially can hit you around 650 to 700 OPS. If you could just get those three things in place, which don't feel like that big of an ask, but after the first half of the season, it seems like a massive request. But if you could get that type of development next year from those positions, you would absolutely see a massive improvement. That type of improvement from those three positions are what gets you over that 5-run-a-game hump, which is when we win at a very high level. That's what I think the bigger discussion is.
And I do want to make sure we mention that he has made adjustments to his stance, to his swing, that maybe lend themselves to be more real, and therefore we might be able to recreate these results in April, May, and June of next year. But there's also still some, like he still doesn't take any walk. Even right now, even when he's red hot, he doesn't take any walks. And it's just so hard to be a consistent offensive player. I think in 500 plate appearances this year, he has 13 walks, which is crazy. It's almost like impossible. So, he has made changes that might lend themselves to more consistent results, but there are still red flags with the approach. I don't know. I mean, that's why I asked the question. I don't know what to make of Michael Harris. So we'll see,
But
we're going to give him every opportunity. Of course, he's going to be here a while, but it feels like deja vu all over again.
And I understand also that with what we've experienced over the past 18 months, it just feels natural now to any type of glimpse of hope that we see or any type of excellent stretch of play from a player that we see. We're like, okay, when is this going to end? When is when are we going to wake up from this dream? What have you? Being skeptical just seems second nature now for being a Braves fan, and I completely get it. But I will say again, this is something that we've consistently seen. You take second half Michael Harris, you've got one of the best outfielders in the game. If you could put that over a full season, that becomes a clear all-star, potential MVP level type of player. The capability is certainly there, and if he can make the adjustments like he did from the start of July into the middle of July and has maintained them over a month, he's capable of making positive adjustments that can turn him to an immensely productive player over a long stretch. I've got faith that he's turned a corner. I'm not saying that means he's going to become an all-star and MVP candidate. I just feel the consistency will improve. And if that's the case, that is one of the biggest boosts that we can have to once again become a contender next year. But if you want to talk about boosts for right now, if you want to talk about better days ahead, we've got two massive reasons as to why that may be. We'll discuss that in just a moment after another word from our partners.
The dog days of summer means the MLB is fully heating up, and so is your shot to score big. Download the Pick6 app for the easiest way to turn your baseball takes into actual cash. It's crazy simple. Just pick more or less on the stats for two or more of your favorite players, and boom, you are in the mix for big cash prizes. No gimmicks, no weird rules. And get this, all new Pick6 customers will instantly get $50 in bonus picks on just a $5 entry. Download the DraftKings Pick6 app right now and use code FOUL. That's code FOUL. New customers play $5 and get $50 in bonus picks instantly. Ride the upside where a few bucks can turn into a bag only on DraftKings Pick6. Crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 and over. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. One per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick6 bonus picks that expire in 14 days. 8/24/25 at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. Terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
So, Stephen, if you go back about 7 or 8 weeks ago, the injury to Chris Sale, when it seemed like that maybe we were turning a quarter, maybe we were starting to, see, our season turned around, that kind of just started the downward spiral that, we're kind of at the bottom of right now. And then, of course, you go back about 2.5 weeks ago, it was another low point in the season where there was just a massive outcry when it came to Ronald Acuna Jr. How hurt was he? Why did the coaching staff put him in a position? All that different stuff. Well, the good thing is, the good news is that not only are both Chris Sale and Ronald Acuna Jr. both getting close to being 100% healthy, they're both on the doorstep of returning. I know that doesn't make a difference in terms of, us getting close to our goals for this season, but it is a great development to see them back on the field for multiple reasons.
Yep. So, Mark Bowman, beat writer for MLB.com, tweeted today that Acuna was on the field, that there was a chance they would reinstate him either tomorrow or Thursday for this series, could be next series, but it's imminent is the main takeaway. Even if it's not in the next 2 days, he is close enough. Brian Sticker said that he did not need a rehab start, so he's not going to have to go out to Gwinnett or whatever to get some games in. They're just going to activate him. So that tells me that the fact that they're not doing a rehab start, that it's going to be very soon. Like, I don't know if it's going to be tomorrow. It may be Thursday, maybe Friday. We'll see. But I think it's going to be very soon. And then, of course, Chris Sale actually had a rehab start tonight in Gwinnett. Shawn, I think you pulled the stats on that. What did Chris do tonight?
40 pitches pitched through 2 innings, gave up 1 run, 2 strikeouts. Overall, just looked healthy. So that kind of indicates to me that this may be one of multiple starts that he'll probably get. But yeah, overall, just a pretty clean outing with some decent results.
Yeah, so obviously they kept this pitch count pretty low. So yeah, that probably does indicate they're going to stack a few of these. It might be, with Chris, Yeah, I think Acuna is certainly coming back before Sale. I think Acuna could come back tomorrow. Sale's probably going to be at least another week, maybe two. They're probably going to do 2 or 3 rehab starts. Quite honestly, he's been out since middle of June, so he can't just come back to the mound. And it might even be like September for Chris. There's no rush. I do think it's important, and this is why it doesn't bother me as much as it bothers other people. I do think it's important to get Chris Sale on the mound and pitching and comfortable so that he can go into the offseason like with a normal offseason. And same thing with Acuna, quite honestly. So he can go to the offseason like game ready. And he doesn't have to worry about rehabbing anything. He's just game ready going into a normal offseason. That matters for pitchers probably more than hitters. So, with Sale, even if it doesn't matter in the standings, and it's not going to matter in the standings, everybody knows the Braves season has been over for a while now. You could really trace it back to when Sale got hurt. It does matter for 2026 because these guys having normal off seasons is a big part of them having good 2026s. And that's what we're all hoping for. So the Braves are arguably the Braves' 2 best players. I don't think it's arguable. The Braves' 2 best players, Acuna and Chris Sale, on the doorstep of coming back.
Speaking of, some updates on, approaches for the rest of the season, Brian Snicker talked about, a 6-man rotation, the fact that the Braves may continue to implement that. But I do think it brings up an interesting question because right now we've got a 6-man rotation. You've got Spencer Strider, Carlos Carrasco, Eric Fedde, Hurston Waldrop, Bryce Elder, as well as Joey Wentz. That is 6 pitchers. You get Chris Sale back, that's 7. So that means that there is going to be an odd man out. Now, I would imagine that probably would be Bryce Elder. But with that being said, one thing that I will give Bryce Elder credit for, he can take that ball every 5th day just about as reliably, at least step on the mound every 5th day, just as reliably as one can. I think he makes sense to potentially be the one to be the odd man out. If someone were to struggle in between them, maybe that's what you do. Maybe you move on from Carrasco or Fedde. What are your thoughts as far as the comments on the 6-man rotation and what potentially happens now that we have 7 viable arms to fill that out?
Yeah, we were talking about that. I think in our DMs, or maybe it was just on Twitter. I can't remember, but like when they brought Hurston Waldrop back up, they didn't use him as the 27th man. They actually just brought him to the roster because he was actually an extra man for the Speedway Classic, so they could do that. And they'd never sent him back down. And so they just had 6 starters. And I actually thought, I tweeted this out, I thought they might, because of the off day on Monday, they could have just slipped Hurston Waldrop into Bryce Elder's spot on Thursday. And I thought that's what they were going to do. And maybe Elder goes to the bullpen to be a long guy, or maybe he goes to AAA. But no, that's not what they're doing. They're going with 6 for a little while. Snitker said they're going to go with it as long as they can. I do think they want to limit the innings of Strider. I think they want to limit the innings of Waldrop. The other guys, I don't think they're that concerned about. But doing a 6-man rotation does do that. It takes a start away from everybody every turn. So it's an effective way to limit innings, which I'm guessing is the logic. When Sale comes back, I'm guessing either Carrasco gets DFA'd or Elder gets optioned. That's probably Carrasco gets DFA'd, honestly. I mean, he's like 38-year-old journeyman, starter. He's literally here just to get the Braves to the finish line. So if they want a spot for Chris Sale, they can just DFA Carrasco. But Elder might get optioned too. It is what it is. I wouldn't also be surprised if at some point they just shut Strider or Waldrop down. Waldrop's reaching his kind of most innings he's ever thrown, but you do want to push those limits to help guys, get past them. So I don't think they're just going to hard shut him down, but I think the 6-man rotation is a way to limit guys' innings and spread out the workload over what's going to be a pretty meaningless last 7 weeks.
Yeah, and especially with Waldrop, even Wentz, who's been a nice surprise so far this year, you don't know what you have with those guys. Yeah. So giving them some more starts to see if they can build some momentum as being potential options for the rotation next year, why not let them, without, them running into or running completely over their innings limit. Guys like Eric Fedde, guys like Bryce Elder, Carlos Carrasco, either don't care what you have or you already know what you have.
Right.
And so that's to me the reason why it would make sense for one of those guys to go. But on that same end, let's get to September, see what we've got in Waldrop and Wentz, and go from there. But I agree. At that point, shut Strider down. At some point, I'm sure they'll shut Chris Sale down as well. But I do think he comes for at least 3 to 5 more starts. And obviously, it's going to be glad to see Ronald Acuna Jr. in there. And we'll end with this note. It seems like Austin Riley could be, knocking on the doorstep here within the next week or so as well. Steven, anything else from you as we wrap up this edition of the Hammer Territory podcast?
No, disappointing night. But I'm still rooting for wins. Like, I know people don't agree with that. That's fine. But I still want to win games. I still want to, guys to perform well. Not even necessarily because I think, like, I don't really believe in like momentum carrying over from the end of one season to the beginning of the other. But I just want to see, with the Braves having so many guys locked up long term, I just want to see good play, because there's a very good chance a lot of these same players are going to be on the roster next year. And it's just nice to be reminded of the talent that is actually there. And again, it's not really about the standings anymore, and it's also just more enjoyable to watch good baseball. So I'm not really hoping for, there are people out there hoping for like 40 straight losses to get the number 2 overall pick or whatever. I understand your logic, but that's just not me. I still want to see good baseball.
Yeah, tanking's just not as effective. We could, like, say, we'll probably discuss this in a later show. Tanking's not is not as effective in baseball as it is in other sports for a variety of reasons. But more than anything, when you're a team like the Braves who's not looking to tank long term, you're not looking to sit here and be bad right now so you can get as high as a draft pick and do the same thing next year. You're wanting to win and win big as soon as next season, and you're going to need to rely more on your young guys due to injuries or disappointments elsewhere that you've experienced this year. For all the great performances of a Baldwin, a Michael Harris, a Hurston Waldrop that leads us to wins, that's to me what stands out. Not only are you wanting to see those guys succeed, but it means something when they succeed and it leads to wins. That connection, that overall recognition that, hey, if I do this, if I perform at this level and it's leading us to get wins, especially in an environment where we haven't been getting that many, that should set me up to be able to be a contributing factor when wins will matter once again in the future. So that's why I put a value on us winning.
Yeah. And again, like you said, it's a lottery system. So how many losses you have does not directly indicate your draft position. And B, the MLB draft, it's not like Andrew Luck sitting there at, the number 1. It just doesn't work that way. You're usually drafting high school guys or 5 years away. Like, you can have just as good a drafting at 7 as you can at 4. Like, it just doesn't work the same. So yeah, I'm fine with winning games.
And I know that everybody's kind of looking at the fact that next year it is so top heavy. There's so many quality potential shortstops in the top of next year's draft. I feel confident that the Braves are going to find themselves somewhere in a position to where they should be in line to, have their pick of multiple guys from that group. Plus, the big thing for me is if we can get that draft pick from Drake Baldwin winning Rookie of the Year, that's just even more money to throw at options that can overall bring up the quality of our farm system for the future. For Stephen Tolbert, you can find me at B_outliers on Twitter/X. My name is Shawn Coleman. You can find me at Stats SAC in the same place. Hammer Territory across all forms of social media, part of the Foul Territory family of podcasts. Can't thank you enough for joining us. As always, thank you for the support. Until next time, go Braves. We'll talk to you again soon here on the Hammer Territory podcast.